In today's video, I'm going to get into the top free agents this summer as we slowly head into the 2024-2025 season. There's been a lot of talk about Klay Thompson, Paul George, but there's actually a lot more notable names that should be mentioned. And I did a video about Klay already. We'll get into Paul George. But let's start off with some obvious names that will be restricted free agents, or they will be unless they don't get some type of new offer that they like after the qualifying one. And one of those names is Tyrese Maxey. He's coming off his rookie contract. I had him as an All-NBA player, to be honest, for this year. That's a whole nother story. Tyrese Maxey, it looks like he's going to be getting max contract, or that's his value. So I'm assuming Philadelphia 76ers right away are going to offer him that kind of contract without him even having to go to another team in Philadelphia trying to match the offer. And they could also offer him more money as well, so he probably knows that, given that Philadelphia has the bird rights tied to him. Another notable restricted free agent that's coming off of his rookie deal is Emmanuel Quickley of the Toronto Raptors. The question here is, what is his quote-unquote market value? What are people thinking is his worth? Either way, he's a main component piece that the Toronto Raptors want. I've heard Masai Ujiri say it himself out of his mouth. And when he was mentioning this, he was specifically talking about the development of the Toronto Raptors moving forward for the future and having Emmanuel Quickley play alongside Scottie Barnes. Safe to say that he will be back with the Toronto Raptors, which leads us into the latest news where the Knicks acquired Mikal Bridges from the Brooklyn Nets, and they sent Bojan Bogdanovic to Brooklyn. And the Nets also acquired a bunch of draft picks from the New York Knicks. The reason why this trade is significant is they got a small forward in Mikal Bridges who could defend and he could score, give you 20 plus points. To me, he's almost like a little bit of an upgrade to an OG Anunoby. Whether you think OG plays better defense or not, it's not a huge fall off. It's not something that's going to be drastically different. Mikal Bridges could still do what an OG does and give you more points, in my opinion. And he's also an Iron Man. He's healthy. And unfortunately, OG has history with injuries or dealing with little things that sometimes keeps him out. And on top of all of that, he's also a free agent. All of this points towards OG signing with a new team this year. I don't see him taking some type of pay cut or wanting to come off the bench. As a matter of fact, that was the rumblings or reports when he was with the Toronto Raptors, that he wanted a bigger contract. He wanted a bigger role. He wanted to prove that he could do a lot more. Assuming all of this is true, he ends up leaving. Let's look at some teams that he could go to that need a small forward and have cap space to give him a reasonable contract. The Cleveland Cavaliers stand out to me as a team that is highly favorable for OG Anunoby. They have just enough cap space to give him within the ballpark of what he was getting annually. They would have to let Isaac Okoro go. That shouldn't be a huge obstacle in terms of placing him with an OG. They don't have any prominent small forwards on this team. They have, obviously, forwards in Evan Mobley at the 4 spot. But OG could fit in right well with a Donovan Mitchell and a Darius Garland. Doesn't need the ball a lot. He could score. Defensively, he's great. He fits in with this team who is already good defensively. This is a nice fit for OG, in my opinion. Ironically, another team that is a great option for OG is the Brooklyn Nets. They have a ton of cap space. They obviously just traded away Mikal Bridges to the New York Knicks. They got Bojan now. You sign an OG Anunoby there. More than likely, Bojan would have to come off the bench. This is a perfect fit too, simply because there's even more money that the Brooklyn Nets could offer him, and they need this position filled. Again, it's just the ironic thing of OG going to this team since they traded away the guy that went to the Knicks that forced him out. Nonetheless, Brooklyn Nets is a great option. The Memphis Grizzlies is another team that OG could potentially go to. They have a club option on Luke Kennard. Again, it's just, the whole money thing. OG wouldn't get exactly what he was getting before. If he's willing to take at least some type of pay cut but still have a significant role, the Memphis Grizzlies is another perfect option that he could go to as well. Let's get into the biggest name of this potentially, which would be Paul George if he declines his player option, which is a lot of money. It's almost 50 mil. And if he does, the New York Knicks would have been a team now that they got Mikal Bridges. And maybe they thought they couldn't end up getting Paul George. He was going to go back to the Clippers anyways. They pulled his move off. And so when you're looking at a Paul George, it got to be a team that is a playoff team at the very least, trying to get a championship and have a huge amount of cap space to give him the money that he wants. The only team that fits that bill with those two credentials would be the Philadelphia 76ers, assuming that they give up Tobias Harris, who's also a free agent. I'm going to stick on this small forward spot for a bit more. There's another name I want to get into that is not being brought up, that is a huge sleeper. Let's first go into Tobias Harris a little bit more. He was making $36 million annually. The Houston Rockets have a good amount of cap space. That's a team that he could go to. They have Dillon Brooks, obviously, at the small forward, and I actually like him despite whatever reputation he has. However, Tobias would definitely be an upgrade for that position, and then they would have to figure out how they maneuver with Dillon Brooks going forward. And if Tobias is comfortable with going to a team that is not in a winning position, so they can compensate with giving them a huge amount of money instead, then you have the Utah Jazz that is out there too. The sleeper that I was talking about is Miles Bridges. He's pretty much a 20.7 rebound guy, at least his last couple seasons. That's what he's done. And he's on a discount, a very, very big discount, since his past transgressions that we all know of. You could look it up yourself. And so if you're a team that needs a small forward, a guy that could get you those numbers that I was saying on a huge discount, well, then pretty much any team that I mentioned that has even a little bit of cap space and need a small forward could go after a Miles Bridges. Maybe the Memphis Grizzlies. As I said, they declined a Luke Kennard's contract. Yes, I'm aware of the storylines that would come with that, given you already have a John Moran and certain things that were going on with him. Just bear with me. I'm trying to give some names that fit with the team, the position, and the contract-wise at the very least. You also have a team like the Clippers. If Paul George ended up leaving and you're looking for somebody that can step in right away, give you all-star numbers besides Kawhi, they do play the same position. There's that. Maybe you could figure out some kind of unique lineups. Well, Miles Bridges is either one of two things. He ends up going to a team that knows, okay, you're limited in terms of the options that you have. You could come here, play for us, help us get a championship. You're not going to be a main piece like you were on Charlotte. Or it's going to be the opposite. There's a team out there that really wants to give him a second chance and let him be that 20-point per game kind of scorer within the starting lineup, a main piece on offense. We'll see. Let's stick with the Clippers for a second. James Harden is an unrestricted free agent. I see him signing back just for the sake that I don't know any other team that could offer him the amount of money that he would want, on top of being a team that could still win. And it's not going to be Philly, right? They already had James Harden, obviously. Russell Westbrook has a player option for $4 million annually. If he declines that, that would be a huge pickup for a team that had just a bit of cap space that could take on a Russell Westbrook who, at this point, just wants to win. Sacramento Kings could use him as a backup point guard. He was already coming off the bench, right? So assuming that he's still okay with that, the Kings, the New York Knicks, that would be a huge pickup, having him come off the bench for a Jalen Brunson. The Knicks would probably be more of an ideal situation given the market, a name like Russell Westbrook. Also, they would have more cap space. Again, under the assumption of OG not being there anymore, you throw him a little bit more than what he was getting originally. Let's get into another name that should be brought up a lot more. DeMar DeRozan, multi-time All-Star. If you're looking for somebody that could just go in there at that shooting guard position and light it up, give your team a lot more scoring, this is the guy. Orlando Magic, right? They need a shooting guard. They have a whole lot of cap space. Now, DeMar DeRozan obviously struggles with his shot. The Magic are a defensive team. If they're looking for somebody beside Paolo that could help them out and even take over games, DeRozan would be the perfect fit for this team. Strictly in terms of having another scorer at that position, right? I want to make that very, very known. I do think Klay Thompson would be a much better fit, and I did a whole video about Klay Thompson as well. So if you're wondering why I haven't mentioned him, it's because I did that already. Overall, DeMar DeRozan's options are limited in terms of teams that have the financial space to give him what he would want. Are they a playoff team, or they may already have another shooting guard at that position? So it'll be very interesting to see what happens with him. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up coming back with the Chicago Bulls, to be honest. I'll end this video off by throwing out some other names that will be key changers, game changers, sleepers, people that could really help out a championship team. Gary Trent is an unrestricted free agent. He was with the Toronto Raptors. Not sure how much they want him in the future, if they do or not. So I could see him going to a team and potentially helping them if they are on the cusp of a championship. There's Buddy Hield. He's an unrestricted free agent as well. Jonas Valanciunas, that's another unrestricted free agent. Andre Drummond if you want just a big body, somebody that could come in there for 10-15 minutes. Anyways, y'all tell me what you think of the video. Is there any other free agents that I should be talking about? Any other notable names? Do you like the suggestions that I made? I tried my best just to go over everything to make sure it at least fits on paper and it makes sense. Salute for listening once again, and peace.